Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and today I thought it would be fun to sit down and do another episode of Dear Nero. This used to be a weekly series back in the day that I did every single Wednesday, where basically I would just answer questions that were sent in by the community, and last week I did a throwback episode just for old time's sake, and the response to that video was really good, so I thought, hey, why not do it again this week? I have a number of really fun and interesting questions to go over, so sit back, relax, and enjoy as we jump right into the first question, which is going to be coming in from Sig, who writes, Dear Nero, do you think that the criticism Black Ops Cold War gets is justified? Treyarch was forced to pick up where Sledgehammer left off in about a year's time, as well as during the pandemic. I agree that the lack of support, multiplayer, and zombies maps is disappointing, but should we cut the developers some slack? So, Consig, thank you very much for the question. I do not agree that because the game had a really bad development cycle, and don't get me wrong here, this was probably the worst development cycle we've seen since Modern Warfare 3. Like, this was a really, really bad dev cycle. Just because that happened, and the pandemic and all of that, does not basically make Black Ops Cold War immune to criticism, because a lot of the problems that Black Ops Cold War has are things that can be fixed relatively easily, but they're just kind of ignoring it because the game almost feels like it's on life support from time to time. If you really think about the Call of Duty dev cycle and the release cycle and everything like that, Call of Duty follows a pretty simple formula. It's basically get the game out by any means necessary. It doesn't matter how much overtime, how many people they have to hire, how many people they have to fire, just as long as they can get the game out on time, they're happy, right? And then after that, they basically put the game on life support throughout its entire life cycle until the next Call of Duty title releases. Then, of course, try to pump as many players into Warzone as humanly possible. That seems to be kind of the status quo for the Call of Duty franchise as of late, and I think it's because of the Call of Duty development cycle, right? If you think about the Call of Duty development cycle as a whole, it's one that's always going. Once the game is finally finished and it's finally hitting shelves for the very first time, then I believe the developers get a little bit of a break, but right after that, they're right back to it, and they're mostly working on the next Call of Duty title that they have coming, right? If you think about Treyarch, for example, as soon as they released Black Ops Cold War, it was basically back to the drawing board because they now have a deadline to release another Call of Duty game in about 2 years' time. Right, so they just have to go right back to it, and it's really hard, in my opinion anyway, for them to develop a game that's going to be coming out in a couple of years, while also maintaining the game that they just released. And this may be why you guys may have seen the news recently that virtually every single studio that is under the Activision umbrella is now working on Call of Duty in one way or another. That may be the reason why, because the games these days are just releasing with less content than ever before, really. You look back at Call of Duty 4, World at War, Modern Warfare 2, like these games released with like 16 multiplayer maps at launch and would have anywhere from 12 to 16 DLC maps that would release throughout the entire year. Like, we had so many maps back in the day, we had so many guns back in the day, we just had so much to do, and that was just standard for the Call of Duty franchise. But as of lately, we get like, what, 8 to 10 multiplayer maps at launch, and like 2 of those are remakes, and then throughout the seasons, like look at Black Ops Cold War, for example. Season 1, we got, what was it, 2 multiplayer maps, and only one of them was actually new. And then during Season 2, we got, what, 1 multiplayer map? Apocalypse? I don't even think it's a good map. Like, everyone's gonna disagree, you know, people like it, people dislike it, whatever, but for me personally, Apocalypse wasn't even a good map. And that's all we got for Season 2? Like, that's horrible, right? And then obviously Season 3 is much better. We got 2 new 6v6 maps at launch. Standoff is going to be coming mid-season. We may get more multiplayer maps with Season 3 Reloaded. That's awesome, but what the hell happened with Season 2? Like, Season 2, they basically just said, you know what, we're just not going to work on Cold War for the next 2 months, is what it seemed like. And maybe they're putting more development time into the next Call of Duty title, I don't know. But should we cut the developers some slack? Sure. I think the developers themselves, like the people actually doing the grunt work, it's not their fault, right? It's never been their fault. Like, the person that's designing the set pieces and like doing the decorating on the maps and stuff like that, it's not their fault that certain maps aren't well put together. It's not their fault that we got 1 DLC map throughout the entirety of Season 2, right? The fault lies with the higher-ups. Activision does look down towards all their studios, including Treyarch, and they kind of give them an idea of what they should be doing, at least to my understanding. And so it's always the higher-ups. It's never the people that are trying to balance the game. It's not the people doing the in-game testing. It's not the people that are designing the weapons. Like, these are just the people doing what they are told essentially. It's the higher-ups that are causing the problems, and I have no doubt in my mind that if Activision were to get rid of this annual release cycle, that the games themselves would release in a much better state and have more content throughout the entire year, and as a result, the entire Call of Duty player base would be much more happy. But they don't do that because there's much more money to be made from them releasing a game every single year. They get that $60 or $70, whatever it is now, from all these Call of Duty players every single year. And then some of these people also buy the Battle Pass. They also buy the anime skins in the shop, right? They make all their money that way. And then the next Call of Duty game releases and it's like a full reset button, right? Everything you did in the previous Call of Duty title is completely for naught. Right, like what we do right now in Black Ops Cold War, like for example, I have Dark Matter, right? I spent a lot of time, I unlocked Dark Matter, I got Prestige Master in the first season, stuff like that. Doesn't matter, right? Going back to Black Ops 4, also got Dark Matter. I did 100%, I got all the challenges in the multiplayer for that game, completed them all. Did all this stuff in Blackout, got to like 80 star, unlocked all these skins, did all these things, all for naught. All for naught. Right? Everything in Call of Duty is completely self-contained, and they like it that way. As a gamer, as a player, I don't like that because I want the things that I'm doing right now to actually matter going forward. Call of Duty is a series. There should be some continuity in between the games, but there never is. And I don't know why that is. I feel as though they would have much more player engagement if players had this feeling of what they're doing right now actually matters going forward. Like if I could take Dark Matter camo, for example, from Cold War and take it with me into World War II Vanguard, which is likely the game coming out this fall, that would be awesome, right? I think they would see so much more player retention in Cold War, knowing that some of that stuff would actually carry over into the next Call of Duty title. There is so much they could do with this. I don't understand why Call of Duty itself is so disjointed at times, but at the same time, it's all the same. Like, Activision's really pushing to make all the developers all work on Call of Duty, and they're trying to make it so the game feels unified because they, of course, want to tie every game that comes out now into Warzone, yet at the same time, all the games are so disjointed. I feel like I'm getting off topic here. I could rant about this for hours and hours and hours, but I do believe that the criticism of Black Ops Cold War is justified. I think it comes down from the higher-ups. I think the higher-ups at Treyarch and at Activision are the reason why the game is the way that it is. I think there are lots of balance issues, like a bunch of little things, right? Like, they could fix snipers, and I've complained about this constantly, but I think I come at things from a very... I try not to be biased, right, when it comes to all these different things. I know a lot of snipers in the COD community, even people in the comment section of my videos and on Twitter, and people seem to agree with me in the sense that snipers should have their aim down sight speed buffed, like their handling and movement and all that should be buffed because it's a game with high health and small maps and stuff. They need to have fast handling, but in exchange for that, give them flinch. Right, and have them be the only weapon category in the game that have flinch. That would really balance out snipers for people that hate dying to snipers, and it would balance out sniping for the people that hate how slow the aim down sight speed is, right? That's one thing they could do. We've been talking about this ever since the alpha. They haven't done anything. People aren't really happy with the score streak system. Have they done anything to innovate on that whatsoever? No, they haven't really done that. 100%er, for example, like if you do every single multiplayer challenge of Black Ops Cold War, guess what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. You don't even get a calling card. Back in Black Ops 4, we complained that if you did all the challenges, you only got a calling card. And they're like, guys, they don't like the calling card we give them. We'll just take that away then. It's like, no, we want something for doing all the challenges in the game. Give us a reason to grind the game. But then again, like I said, going back to it, there's no real reason to grind the game aside from you just kind of wanting to, because everything you do in this game is completely null and void when the next Call of Duty game comes out. I don't know, man. Call of Duty's development cycle is really... It's in a really bad place right now. Should we cut the devs some slack? Yes. The actual developers, like the people doing the grunt work, the people designing the maps and people doing this and that. Everything from a business perspective, though, that has nothing to do with, Joe Blow designing weapons. Or Joe Blow designing weapon camos, or the art team putting together things for the shop. Like, those people have nothing to do with the decisions that are made. They just do what they need to do, and they're trying to better themselves as developers so they can move up in the ranks in the gaming industry. Like, the actual devs, yeah, cut them some slack. When it comes to, like, the higher-ups at Treyarch, and especially the people at Activision, no, never cut them some slack. The next question is going to be coming in from Daniel Grudzian. That's a hard name to pronounce, but he writes, Dear Nero, will you be playing the new Battlefield game or the new Call of Duty game, and have you played Battlefield? So to quickly cover on this, yes, I played Battlefield. I started off with Bad Company 2, played a ton of Battlefield 3, played a ton of Battlefield 4, and I don't like how you said, are you going to play the new Battlefield or the new COD? Because I'm going to play both. I'm excited about both. I will make some Battlefield videos here for the channel if and when that game actually comes out. I mean, it's going to come out, but when it comes out. If the response is good, I'll continue making videos on it. If people are like, I don't really like Battlefield videos, then I'll maybe move that stuff over to my second channel. But yeah, I'm going to play both games for sure. I'm excited about both. The next question is going to be coming in from SCP Josh, who writes, Dear Nero, can we get a tattoo tour and why you got them? So recently I put up a picture of my dog on Twitter, and in there people saw I had tattoos on my arm, and everyone's like, wait, since when do you have tattoos? Can I see your tattoos? And so I thought I would take some pictures for you guys. Mind you, these are nothing fancy, right? I have 6. I have 6 total tattoos. They're on my right arm. The idea initially was to get a sleeve pretty much all up my right arm, and then from there move on, maybe some stuff on the chest, maybe stuff on the left arm. I don't know, right? I was just kind of, flying by the seat of my pants there for a while when it came to tattoos. Every time I saw a design I thought was neat, I would basically go and get it. And then COVID happened, and I stopped getting tattoos. I haven't got a tattoo since right before the pandemic happened. But here we go. So my first ever tattoo was this one right here. It's a very simple design. It's a Lucero star. Lucero is a band. And what's fun about this is there's guaranteed going to be like maybe 5 of you total watching this video who have heard of Lucero and like Lucero, and you're going to like the fact that I have a Lucero tattoo. But yeah, that was my first tattoo ever. I thought it was simple. It's just right there on the forearm. I think it looks good. It's clean. It was a very good starter tattoo, something very basic. My second tattoo, oh gosh, I actually can't remember what order these went in. I'm just going to move on down the arm. The tattoo below that is a Room 237 key, which is a reference, of course, to The Shining. This was a design that I basically put together, and I had my tattoo guy, he obviously made it much better. Whenever I give tattoo ideas to the guy that does my tattoos, I always draw something up in paint pretty much, and then I send it to him, and then he actually makes it art, whereas mine is just a child's drawing. But yeah, it's a Room 237 key, which is a reference to The Shining. It's a really amazing, it's definitely my favorite movie of all time, and I thought it was a really cool idea. And you'll notice I have most of my tattoos are just simply black and white with a little bit of shading. That's basically the entire idea for my right arm, just random pieces and stuff, whereas the left arm I made to a more thought out sleeve. But yeah, that's my second tattoo there. The third tattoo, this is gonna be just a very simple little ghost. It's basically, it's from Halloween when Michael Myers went up the stairs and he ended up killing that one guy, and then he took the sheet and then made it look like he was a ghost, and then he walks in the room. The woman thinks that Michael is her boyfriend. There's something about that scene I thought was so iconic for the Halloween franchise, and Halloween is one of my favorite movie franchises ever. And so as a result, I wanted that piece. Now you'll notice that because these are all individual pieces, there's not really anything around it, and I think I can actually connect a lot of these things by making the room in the background. If you can picture the tattoo here, and then picture this image of the movie itself, I could do the room and then have that go around my arm, and then on the walls of the room I could put different tattoos, different posters and stuff of other references and stuff. I have a lot of ideas. Right now it's all very bare bones. The fourth tattoo is just going to be what I call the Maiden. This is another reference to Lucero, again, favorite band. This is from their Texas and Tennessee EP, and Texas and Tennessee is probably, it's one of, if not my favorite song from Lucero. It's ridiculously good, especially live. And I have a lot of Native American in me. My grandmother was half Native American, something like that. And so it kind of tied in there, tied into Lucero. I really like the design for some reason. There's a different Lucero design that I really thought would be much better. However, if I could find an image of it online, I'll put it in the video. If there's no image on your screen right now, I couldn't find the image. But I think that would have been much cooler. But maybe I'll get that same piece somewhere else. I really don't know. But this one was actually interesting, because my tattoo guy had such a hard time getting a stencil for this. Whenever you tried to put it on my arm, the headdress would just basically all bleed together. So we had to basically go in and hand do everything right there, and I think it looks really good. And that's probably my favorite tattoo, honestly, that I have. It just sits right there on the front, or I guess the top of my forearm. And I'm looking at it right now. That's definitely my favorite piece. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of that. Down towards my wrist, I have a heart. I was in Lancaster for a music show. What was this? This was actually about right before the pandemic, actually. It keeps going back to Lucero. It was the first time I saw Lucero in concert. They were in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I was there, and while I was there, I'm just kind of walking around killing time before the show. I got there the night before. I had to drive 6 hours to even get there. And so I'm walking around just kind of looking for things to do during the day until the show that evening. And I ended up noticing that at the hotel I was staying at, there was 3 different tattoo places within walking distance. And so I called them up, and I found ones I would just take walk-ins. And I'm texting my buddy, I'm like, what should I get? Like, I'm getting a tattoo today. Like, I want something. You know, a lot of people, when they don't have tattoos, they feel as though everything has to be super meaningful and whatever. And if that's your thing, that's your thing. But for me, it's not. I just want stuff on my body. I guess I like art. I like having stuff there. And he was giving me some ideas. I was, bouncing some ideas back, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna get the manliest tattoo I can think of. And so I came up with this. It's literally just a heart. It's just a heart down there by my wrist, which is kind of meant to almost be like a connector almost between the maiden and the ghost. I just kind of have things all around. Like, it's right next as well to the room 237 key. So that's all basically there in my forearm. There's definitely a lot more stuff I want to get down there. But again, the pandemic happened. The guy that does my tattoos is no longer doing tattoos. So I have to go find a new artist. And I don't know how I'm going to do that. And the final tattoo is actually up towards my bicep. I actually came up with the idea for this one because Friday the 13th Part 6 is my favorite Friday the 13th. Again, I love 80s horror, whether it's Nightmare on Elm Street or Halloween or any number of them, right? And Friday the 13th Part 6 is by far my favorite. And a lot of people have these tattoos where it's like two different triangles connecting, essentially. And then there's stuff inside those triangles. So, like I said, I would always send over things I would draw up in Microsoft Paint to my tattoo guy, and he would make it actual art. So here is the stuff I sent over. This is still saved in my computer. This is what I sent him. I'm like, all right, so this is like a rough outline. This is like an idea of like what I have here. Can you make something of this? And he was like super cool about it. Like, he would come up with like the craziest stuff based off my very, very horrible Microsoft Paint sketches here. And so this was the initial premise, and this is what he came up with. Now, obviously, it's not perfect. I think if I were to have somebody maybe touch it up, especially now that my tattoo guy doesn't do tattoos anymore, I would maybe have somebody touch it up. I would maybe do like maybe a red outline. Like, for anyone that's ever done or had a tattoo, you know how your tattoos are always like real red when you first get them because of like blood and stuff? It looked way better when it was fresh as compared to now because of that red. So I think I might get some red shading in there, maybe redo the border, because the border is not exactly perfect when it comes to straight lines and everything like that. So like maybe fill that in with red and have somebody do a really perfectly straight diamond around it. I really don't know. They're not the best tattoos in the world. By no means am I spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on these things. It's just a local shop around here from a guy I like, and I like his art and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm up to 6 tattoos now, and I've been stuck at 6 tattoos since the pandemic. And I have a feeling once the pandemic is kind of lifted and I kind of get more ideas for things that I want, like every time I see something like on Reddit or just on Twitter or whatever, like I always save it to my phone. I just have this giant folder of tattoo ideas, and it's gonna become a point where I'm gonna get like a tattoo every single week once I finally get back into it. But yeah, it's been a while since I got any. I just have a 6 here, and it's a very incomplete sleeve of random pieces of art, essentially. Yeah, a lot of people like to connect their things. Like, how are you going to connect that? I'm like, I don't even want them connected, really. I kind of like having them all just be kind of like separate individual things on this arm. But maybe on the other arm, like I said, I would do a more planned out sleeve. I definitely like a lot of the Americana old school designs, and maybe my left arm would be much more planned out and be all Americana stuff. But we'll see. We'll definitely see. But yeah, thank you for the question about the tattoos. I figured some of you guys would be interested in seeing stuff about that. And if you guys have any tattoos, tweet them at me on Twitter. It's at NerosCinema. I would definitely like to check those out. The next question is also going to be coming in from a different Joshua who writes, Dear Nero, seeing as it wasn't a very popular Call of Duty, which Black Ops 4 map would you like to see come back in the future? Personally, I like Seaside. Well, Joshua, I was actually thinking about this, right? I got this question. I actually had to sit here and think for a minute. Like, what was my favorite map in Black Ops 4? And I came to the conclusion that, in all honesty, Black Ops 4 is like my 3rd favorite COD of all time. Right behind Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 1. Like, I really, really like Black Ops 4. But the maps weren't all that good. Like, the maps are... I take that back. The maps were amazing, right? The maps in general were all pretty good, but none of them were amazing. None of them were, like, instant classics, like High Rise or Terminal or Crash or, like, Dome. Like, these iconic maps that you think of when you think of old school COD. Like, Black Ops 4 had none of those. Like, most of the really good maps in that game were remakes, like, Summit and Firing Range and Grind. But if I had to pick some maps from Black Ops 4, some ones that come to mind... I thought Contraband was a really interesting map. I like Contraband. Even if when they added Hurricane Contraband, I had the idea that they should take the water out of the map and have it go out to sea like an actual hurricane. But they didn't do that, right? They just kind of made it windy and rainy. But maybe if they were to remove the water, I wonder how that would play in like a normal traditional Call of Duty game, or even just keep the water. I don't know. Gridlock. I think Gridlock plays really well. I would like to see Gridlock with a bit of an aesthetic change, because like the idea of like this like busted up street and like there's a bit of a dojo or something over there. I don't know what you call those things. The map itself didn't look all that great, but I thought Gridlock played pretty well. And for some reason, I always liked the DLC map Lockup. Maybe because it's just a police station and it's bright, it's colorful, there's blues and yellows, and I actually thought the gameplay was pretty good as well. So maybe Lockup, but again, Black Ops 4, for me personally, it's a really weird situation. It's a top 3 COD of all time, but none of the maps were amazing. It's really weird how that plays out. The next question is going to be coming in from Sushi Boy, who writes, Dear Nero, I am currently living in Japan. I just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts about Japan? So, I started playing Final Fantasy XIV recently. Does that count as liking Japan? I don't know. I've always thought Japan was like a super interesting culture. And the reason why I picked this question was because it seems like so many people are like really into Japan and that culture and the aesthetic and like all that stuff, right? Whereas for me, I always thought it was interesting. I'm just not like into it as much as other people. For me, I'm more like into things that are, I guess, my own roots. Like I have roots when it comes to like my heritage and stuff. I'm like predominantly English, Irish, and Native American, like those 3 things. So those 3 things and those cultures and everything have always been really interesting to me, because that's kind of like my ancestry, right? And so I've kind of like always wanted to look into that kind of thing. But Japanese stuff is always like, it's a whole different world. Like when I look at like pictures of like Tokyo or videos, because there's been a lot of YouTubers and even streamers, people will go to Japan and they'll just do like a live stream of them like walking around doing different things in Japan, especially in Tokyo. And it's always super interesting because it's so different than where I live in like small town, middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, right? Like if I go, for example, if I were to go visit somewhere, if I go visit England, it's going to be different, but it's not going to be all that much different than the United States. Right? I mean, there's obviously some differences, but in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be pretty similar. If I go to Japan, it's going to be really different compared to the United States or England or Ireland or anything like that. So I think it'll be fun for a vacation, but I was never all that interested in the culture and like everything else as much as other people. Like it seems like people that get into anime are like super into anime. I watched Pokemon growing up. I like that. The next question is going to be coming in from Moses, who writes, Dear Nero, what are some tips for starting a gaming channel in 2021? I have zero experience in this field of work, but I went ahead and wasted the money on getting the equipment, and I'm ready to use it. So, gaming channel. Here's the thing, right? Gaming is ridiculously oversaturated, and if you go back to 2012, all YouTubers are going to say the same thing, like, why even start? It's super oversaturated, like, you're never going to get big. There's always a chance of that. There's always an opportunity for your channel to get traction and for your channel to grow. The thing is, you have to make, and it sounds like I'm being a douche right now. I promise I'm not. You have to make videos that people want to find. That is the only way right now to grow on YouTube, especially as a new creator. Like the kind of videos I'm doing right now, like you, Moses, like you can't do a Q&A video because people don't know who you are. And again, that sounds douchey, but people don't know who you are. So trying to do personality driven things right away is not going to work, because why would they pick you over literally the other hundreds of thousands of people on this platform, right? They don't know. They have to figure out who you are first before they're interested in like you as a person. So if you're going to be doing Call of Duty related stuff, maybe try to get into your own niche, whether that niche is going to be gameplay tips, maybe it's going to be achievement hunting. Like Sour, for example, has found that wonderful niche of doing challenges and achievements and things like that. And I'd never miss a Sour video. That it's so niche and so interesting. He does such a great job. I love that. I love everything about his channel, and it's because it's so niche, and it's exactly what I want to watch, because I'm also into that kind of thing. So whatever it is you're into when it comes to whatever game you're trying to post is, try to find your niche and try to make videos that people are going to search or see in related videos, because that's the only way your channel is going to grow. Don't be the guy where it's like, here's my, I don't know, 50-0 domination game. Gameplay is not as big as it used to be way back when. Like, people don't care to see that kind of thing. For me personally, it comes down to the fact that all the really good gameplay channels are oftentimes reverse boosted. And it's like, yeah, dude, you're playing the equivalent of like human bots, and it's not interesting, right? Whereas if you see someone who is like a really good player that you know has good stats and stuff, also, you know, just shitting on people that also have good stats, then it's more interesting. But gameplay in general is really hard to grow with. You have to do guides, you have to do informative stuff, you have to do news, you have to do reviews, you have to do things that people are going to type into the search bar on YouTube, and if the algorithm shines upon you, then you'll be then you'll be rewarded, I suppose. People are going to find your channel, and if the content's good, they're going to stay. But keep in mind, every video is going to be better than your last. If I look back at the videos I made even last week, I'm going to say those videos sucked, I can do better. You're always going to feel that way. Never stop improving. Always keep wanting to get better. And also, just try to figure out everything as you go. Like, don't try to go too fast with it, pretty much, right? If you're going to want to jump in there and, like, be the next PewDiePie, just chill with it, man. Chill with it. Try to find your niche, kind of find your intro. Some recommendations, definitely. Download Audacity. It's a free app. I'm using it right now to record this video. It's a free app for your computer, and the reason why you want to have it is so when you record your audio, at the end of it, you can remove the background noise, and it doesn't sound bad in your videos. To this day, it's 2021, and I hear people that have horrible background noise. Like, do you guys want to hear what my room just sounds like if I don't remove the background noise? Take a listen. Yeah, it's not a good sound, is it? With Audacity, I remove all that. It's fantastic. So, yeah, that's my recommendation. Start off making videos that people want to find, essentially. Kind of find your niche, and maybe you'll be the next JGod. JGod found himself a niche, and he is killing it. Like, JGod gets more views in a month than I get in a year. Like, JGod, it's well-deserved. JGod is killing it. He's, like, the best at what he does. And you may not be JGod right away, but you find your niche and work towards being that. And if you're hungry, and if you actually enjoy it, you'll get there eventually. It's just going to take a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work. The next question is going to be coming in from Reflex, who writes, Dear Nero, if you had to recommend any COD for a fan getting into their first game, which one would you recommend and why? So this is a super interesting question. I never actually got a question like this before. Somebody saying like, hey, I've never played COD before. Which one should I start off with? As much as I want to say the classics, like play Call of Duty 4, play Modern Warfare 2, see what the game was like back in the day, it's not going to serve a new fan. It really isn't, because COD isn't made for people that enjoy those old games anymore. And if I tell someone, like, yeah, play Modern Warfare 2, it's a great game to get into, the game is super hacked, it's got a small population, and it's buggy as all hell, and it's going to be laggy, and it's going to be hard to find a lobby, and chances are your stats are going to get reset. Like, it's not going to be a good experience. As much as it pains me to say, the best Call of Duty for a brand new fan to get into is always going to be the current one. There is now that new unification of developers, so basically every Call of Duty game from here on out is going to feel more or less like the one that came before it. Like Black Ops Cold War is a bit different, but it feels a lot like Modern Warfare 2019, and World War II Vanguard is going to be more the same. It's going to have the same kind of feel to it, kind of like the same time to kill, the same kind of feel of movement, so it's going to feel similar in that respect. The newest Call of Duty game is always, in general, going to have the largest player base. There's also going to be the cultural feel, right? Like when a new game comes out, you're going to be there for it. You're going to be playing the new Call of Duty game. Therefore, you have stuff to talk about with your friends and other people online and stuff like that. So as much as it pains me to say, the newest Call of Duty game is always going to be the best one to start off with, because, you know, going back to Black Ops 1, for example, and trying to find lobbies in that game, even though I think Black Ops 1 is the best Call of Duty game of all time, it plays and feels so much different than COD does these days, and the player base is pretty much dead, and you're going back to like the Xbox 360. If you try playing on PC, no point. There's no point in playing any Call of Duty game on PC outside of the modded versions before Modern Warfare 2019, before cross-platform. So if you're on PC, definitely don't go back to the older Call of Duty games unless you're playing one of the modded platforms that people talk about, like, what's that one, IW4X, or maybe some of the Plutonium stuff. You know, you just don't want to do that. So always the current game. I always recommend the current game because it just makes the most sense, especially for a new player. The next question is going to be coming in from Jordan, who writes, Dear Nero, might be a weird question, always a good start, but what do you think is the coolest looking attachment or coolest design for an attachment in Call of Duty history? Just curious, and if you could create your own custom attachment, what would you do? So this is kind of a lame answer because there's been so many crazy attachments throughout the entire history of Call of Duty, but one thing comes back to me immediately. The coolest idea, like the maybe design, whatever, for an attachment was the World at War sniper scope on the M1 Grand. So the M1 Grand was just a normal rifle, but the final attachment you could unlock for it was a sniper scope that would if I recall correctly, increase damage and make it so it was basically a semi-automatic sniper. And if you played hardcore, which I played a lot of hardcore and regular search and destroy back in the day, if you played hardcore, a scoped M1 Garand was hands down the best sniper in the entire game. Like it almost felt like you were cheating. It just felt weird. It was like, because nobody really knew about it. This was like, 2008, so YouTube was barely in its infancy, at least in the Call of Duty scene. So people didn't really know much about it. And then suddenly you have this guy like me that would just join your lobby, and suddenly I'm sniping with a scoped M1 Garand, and people are like, wait, how did he get a scope for that? Like, what? Like, no one used the M1 Garand back when. It was like this really weird, goofy attachment that no one thought would even be all that good until it turned out to be really good. I thought that was really fun. And when it comes to making my own attachment, I thought about this, right? My attachment would be called the Balancer. Right? And I don't care what it looks like. It can be a giant pink dildo on the side of your gun. It can be a sunglasses sticker on the side of your gun. I don't care. But the Balancer attachment would be an attachment you could put on your gun to make it so you could not get one hit by a sniper. Basically give you the equivalent of Jug from Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare Remastered, but make it an attachment that only affects snipers and no other weapons. I would use that hands down on every single weapon in every Call of Duty game and just be so happy. The next questions can be coming in from Garata, I think I pronounced that correctly, who writes, Dear Nero, do you think a Call of Duty styled RPG would be successful? I mean, zombies kinda already is, but imagine an open world modern FPS. Bonus question, if this happened, what studio would you want to make the game? So, I do think a Call of Duty styled RPG would be successful. In fact, I've always thought the idea of take the headquarters from World War II, for example, like basically build this entire giant social space that you could do different things in, kind of like make COD feel like an MMO almost, where you have like this giant area, a city, a headquarters, whatever, where you're running around with like 100 other players and you have to go talk to vendors to buy certain attachments and stuff like that once you unlock them and use like an in-game currency that you get for playing. Like basically make World of Warcraft and Call of Duty have a baby. Like that would be actually super cool to me. Like Destiny, I think, was kind of like a similar idea to that almost. And people like that. Like the social aspect of games like that is what's really fun and interesting. That's why people enjoyed the headquarters as well. You'd see these people in the headquarters, you'd see nerds like me who did jumping jacks for 10,000 days, sitting there with the max social score thing above my head, with the chrome camo on the gun on my back, with a skin that was really difficult to unlock. Like, you want to flex on other people, right? That's like the whole point of that kind of game. Like, you want to have like the best gun, you want to have the best camo, the rarest titles, the best gear, the uniforms and stuff like that. And adding that to Call of Duty would actually be pretty awesome. And what studio do I want to make that game? Sledgehammer, for sure, because Sledgehammer built a lot of elements from like old school MMO games into Call of Duty World War II with the headquarters. Obviously, it was very bare bones and basic, but it was like the first iteration of that idea that we've ever seen, and I really hope they innovate upon that with Call of Duty 2021, which of course is rumored to be either a sequel or at the very least a spiritual successor to Call of Duty World War II, so that could be pretty awesome. But thank you for the question, man. And the final question for today is going to be coming in from Crown, who writes, Dear Nero, are you looking forward to the live-action Borderlands movie? Of course, 100%. I love Borderlands. I think Borderlands 3 was a pretty big disappointment, although I haven't played it in a while, and apparently a lot of good things have been added to the game and changed about the game since I last played it, so maybe it's going to be better. Maybe I should go back and give it another go. But yeah, I love Borderlands. I have hundreds and hundreds of days played in Borderlands across Borderlands 1, the pre-sequel, the remaster of Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, and of course Borderlands 3. And then Tales from the Borderlands, that was so good. Those Telltale games, man, those were so much fun to play. But yeah, I'm very excited about the movie. I will be there day one to check out the movie. I think some of the casting options are just weird. I don't understand. Like Roland, for example. Like Roland is like this like tall, kind of quiet military guy. Has a backstory that you don't really know too much about. Doesn't really talk a whole lot. And they have Kevin Hart playing him. And Kevin Hart, I mean, he's a great comedian, but he's also like tiny. And Roland is kind of pictured in the game as being a pretty tall, big, buff, muscular guy. Almost like The Rock would make more sense for a Roland, but The Rock probably has too much charisma because, again, Roland is not much of a charismatic character. But so some of the choices for the characters, like Jamie Lee Curtis coming in as Tannis, I think is perfect. Jamie Lee Curtis, if you guys don't know, huge nerd, huge nerd, so definitely excited to see her in that movie. It's gonna be good, I think. I think it's gonna be good. If nothing else, it's gonna end up like the Warcraft movie, whereas the Warcraft movie did not do really good in like North America, for example, but it killed it over in China. But even though the Warcraft movie wasn't considered to be a great movie, for someone like me who's like a huge Warcraft lore nerd and like has been playing WoW forever and just loves that entire universe, the movie was just basically fan service. And it was awesome to see all those characters, even the background characters, like Romash Hellscream, for example, was just a background character, but you could notice him if you really paid attention. You could see, you know, Kargath and like all these other characters from the game and the lore and the history and stuff like that. So Warcraft was the Warcraft movie was super good in my opinion. I liked it despite a lot of other people not really liking it, and I have a feeling even if the Borderlands movie is not great, I'm still gonna love it because it's gonna take all these things I've seen in game over all these years and kind of bring it to life on the big screen. And that's all I really want at the end of the day. It doesn't need to be the next Endgame, it doesn't need to be like the next Marvel films. I just want a campy, fun Borderlands movie, and chances are that's what we're gonna get. But ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That is another episode in the books of Dear Nero. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. If this video gets a good response, I will maybe do another episode of this again next week. It's kind of fun every Wednesday, gathering all your questions and kind of sitting down and answering them and talking about this, that, and the other thing. So if you guys enjoy this kind of video, leave a like. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.